continue here reading from this. Hare Krishna, welcome to others also who have joined just now. So we are starting the story of Murgari. We had this some question answers in the beginning. So how many of you could read all this story? I think most only Anita Mataji has read. Others could not read. Okay. So anyway, then we have to read this story. Then we will discuss while reading the story. So anybody would like to read this paragraph?
Yeah, I will start.
Okay.
Story of Mrigari, the hard-hearted hunter who became a humble-hearted devotee. Once there was a hunter in a forest of Prayaga who was fortunate enough to meet Narada Muni when the great sage was returning from Vaikunta after visiting Lord Narayana. Narada came to Prayag to bathe in a confluence of Ganges and Yamuna. While passing through the forest, Narada saw a bird lying on the ground. The bird was half killed, being pierced by an arrow, and it was chirping pitifully. Further on, Narada saw a deer flopping about in agony. Further, he saw that a boar was also suffering, and in other place he saw a rabbit twitching in pain. All this made him very compassionate, and he began to think, who is this foolish man who has committed such sins?
So you see this hunter here. This hunter, this story is actually mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita, in Madhya Leela, to explain the power of association. See, Mrigari was getting delight in half killing all the animals, like the boar and the deer and the bird, like that. And Narada Muni happened to see, and he felt pity. Here you can see the contrast between the character of Mrigari and character of Narada Muni. Right? Mrigari is getting delight in half killing animals, and here Narada Muni is getting delight, means feeling compassionate on seeing these animals suffering. So there is a vast difference. Paradukha Dukhi, Paradukha Sukhi is Mrigari, and Paradukha Dukhi is Narada Muni. Paradukha Dukhi means one who feels pain on seeing others' pain. So that is Paradukha Dukhi. So there is a difference between a sinner and a saintly person. Now let's see what Narada Muni does. Yeah.
The passionate and the compassionate. Devotees of the Lord are generally compassionate upon the miseries of the living entities. And what to speak of the great sage Narada? He became very aggrieved by the scene, and after proceeding a few steps, he saw Hunter engaged in hunting with bow and arrows. The hunter's complexion was very dark, and his eyes were red. It appeared to be dangerous just to see him standing there with his bow and arrows, looking just like an associate of Yamaraj, Death. Seeing him, Narada Muni entered deeper into the forest to approach him. As Narada Muni passed through the forest, all the animals who were caught in Hunter's trap fled away.
Yeah. So Murgari was very fearful to look at, and he was standing as if he is Yamaraj, very scary person. Right? Here you can see his long hair, and he is wearing all the animal skin as his dress, and it doesn't seem to have any compassion. Right? So that is Murgari the hunter. And when Narada Muni came, all the animals ran away, and Murgari becomes angry at Narada Muni. Yeah, please continue reading.
The hunter became very, very angry at this, and he was just about to call Narada vile names. But due to the influence of saintly Narada, the hunter could not utter any blasphemies. Rather, with gentle behavior, he asked Narada, "My dear sir, why have you come here while I am hunting? Have you strayed from the general path? Because you have come here, all the animals in my traps have fled." "Yes, I am sorry," Narada replied. "I have come to find my own path and to inquire from you. I have seen that there are many boars, deers, and rabbits on the path. They are lying on the forest floor, half dead and flopping about. Who has committed these sinful acts?" What have what, what you have seen is all right," the hunter replied. "It was done by me. If you are hunting all these poor animals, why don't you kill them at once?" Narada asked. "You half kill them, and they are suffering in their death pangs. This is a great sin. If you want to kill an animal, why don't you kill it completely? Why do you leave it half killed and allow it to die flopping around? My dear lord, the hunter replied, my name is Vrigari, enemy of animals. I am simply following the teachings of my father who taught me to half kill animals and leave them flopping about. When a half dead animal suffers, I take great pleasure in it. I beg one thing from you only, Narada implored. Please accept it.
Hmm.
Oh, yes, sir, I shall give you whatever you like, the hunter said. If you want some animal skin, come to my house. I have many skins of animal, including tigers and deers. I shall give you whatever you like. I do not want such things, Narada replied. However, I do want something else. If you kindly grant it to me, I shall tell you. Please, henceforth from tomorrow, whenever you kill an animal, please kill it completely. Don't leave it half dead. My dear sir, what are you asking of me? What is difference between half killing an animal and killing it completely? If you if you half kill an animal, they suffer great pain, Narada explained. And if you give too much pain to other living entities, you commit great sin. There is a great there is a great offense committed when you kill an animal completely, but the offense is much greater when you half kill it. Indeed, the path which you give half dead animals will have to be accepted by you in the future birth.
The pain which you give half dead animals, will have to be accepted by in the future birth.
Future birth, yeah.
Yeah. So here, Narada is a very expert preacher. He knows exactly what to tell to whom to transform his heart. See, Narada Muni is a very exceptional personality. He is a son of Brahmaji. He was born from the contemplation of Brahma. So he is very, very pure personality, advanced personality. And it is said that Narada Muni is the guru of all the famous personalities in the history. Right? Can you name some of the disciples of Narada Muni?
Dhruva Maharaj,
Okay, okay, Dhruva is one. Anybody else would like to add?
Prahlad Maharaj.
Prahlad Maharaj. Okay, then who else are disciples of Narada Muni? There are many, unlimited list.
Dhruva.
Yeah, Dhruva is already mentioned.
अच्छा अच्छा.
Dhruva,
पार्वती जी.
हाँ,
पार्वती जी.
पार्वती थी नहीं,
हाँ,
शिव जी की।
उनको नारद जी कहते हैं ना कि आपका विवाह उनसे होगा और आप जाके तप करो. तब वो कहती हैं कि
Okay, in that sense you are telling. I am telling spiritual master. See, Narada has many disciples, like even Valmiki is a disciple of Narada Muni. He is the author of Ramayana. Vyasadev is a disciple of Narada Muni. And many kings like Prachini Barishat, and Priyavrata, they are all disciples of Narada Muni. So in Srimad Bhagavatam, so many places Narada Muni comes. So Narada Muni is exceptionally powerful personality. And he is called Narada, one who gives Narayana to others. Narada, one who gives Narayana to others. Narayana को जो देते हैं उनको नारद बोलते हैं. So he is expert in giving Krishna to others. So here also, can you imagine such a sinful murderer of animals, and Narada is coming to him and trying to convert him. Such a powerful personality is, and such a compassionate personality also. And the way what he preaches to different people is different. According to time, place, circumstance, what to speak, he knows. So here he knew that no, if I tell Murgaris to stop killing, he will not listen. So he told, so he made him think. He said, instead of half killing, you fully kill them instantly. And Murugari was surprised, Arey Narada, you are a saintly person. Generally, you don't give such instructions to kill fully, to kill animals. Why are you telling me to kill them fully? Then Narada says, no. First he becomes inquisitive, and then Narada says, yes, it happens. If you cause pain to other animals, then that amount of pain you have to experience in the future life. And it is also said that Narada Muni showed him a trailer of hell. And just like in whenever a movie is being released, before that a trailer, 2-minute trailer comes. Similarly, Narada Muni showed a 2 minute trailer of hell. How there is a hell called Kumbipak, where a person is being fried like a pakoda. There is a hell called as um, Raurava, right? Raurava, Maharora, where there are some birds which will come and eat him alive, right? Kumbhipaka, Raurava, and Asipatravata. So there is a tree made of the patra, the leaves are Asi. Asi means sword. Instead of leaves, there are swords on the tree, and a person is put on top and is dragged down, and his body cut into 100 pieces. Then he is assembled again put up and dragged down. Like this, it happens many times. So in hell, they give a special body called as Yatana Sharira. Ours is body which is suitable for earthly living. But when we die, we are taken to Naraka, and there one is given, if somebody is sinful, is taken to Naraka, and there is given a Yatana Sharira. Yatana Sharira gives you a lot of pain, but you don't die. Okay, so that is specialty of Yatana Sharira. And there he is punished like that. So when Mrugari saw that all these animals whom he is causing pain, they are coming and inflicting pain on him, he got scared. He said, Narada Muni, what is this? I don't want to suffer like this. See, whatever pain we cause to others in this life, same degree of pain we'll have to experience in the future life. So that's why one should be very careful not to inflict pain on others. So, and nowadays we see so much of rampant meat eating, chicken eating, and cow killing. That is very, very painful. And it is also said that such sinful activities cause natural calamities and wars. Whenever innocent people are harmed and sinful reactions are created, that lead to earthquakes or tsunamis or floods, or it can be wars between countries also. This is the cause. Basically, meat eating, cow killing, and abortions. So these two are the main cause of sinful, means natural calamities in this world. Yes. So we'll continue reading. Somebody else would like to read from you?
Can I read?
Yes, Rishi.
Purification in association makes the hunter a humble devotee. Although the hunter was very sinful, his heart became softened, and he became afraid of his sins by virtue of his association with a great devotee like Narada. Those who are grossly sinful are not at all afraid of committing sins. But here we can see that because his purification became in the association of a great devotee like Narada, the hunter became afraid of his sinful activities. The hunter therefore replied, My dear sir, from my very childhood I have been taught to kill animals in this way. Please tell me how I can get rid of all the offenses and sinful activities which I have accumulated. I am surrendering onto your feet. Please save me from all the reactions of my sinful activities which I have committed in the past, and please direct me to the proper path so that I can be free. If you actually want to follow my decisions, directions, I can tell you the real path by which you can be freed from sinful reactions. I shall follow whatever you say without hesitation. The hunter agreed.
So hunter became scared about the sinful reactions. Then he asked Narada, what is the solution? So then Narada said, yes, I will tell you the solution, but are you ready to follow? Yes, I'll follow it without hesitation. Because he was scared of the simple reactions. So sometimes fear is also good. The fear of suffering and punishment can also induce a person to come closer to God. So that's why fear is also good, and in the initial level. So fear, desire, duty, love. Initially, he's in the platform of fear, then he rises to platform of desire, then duty, and then love. So in this way, he progresses to higher and higher platforms. So even if by fear one is coming to God, that's good. One should not condemn that. So Mrugari was at that level, but later on you'll see he'll become so advanced devotee. Just within a matter of months, he becomes a very advanced devotee. So here are two questions. Although Mrugari was a cruel hunter, why did he not call bad names to Narada? So there are four options here. You can choose which one is the right one.
D.
Which one? Which one?
D. D.
D you're telling.
D, D.
He could not call ill names due to saintly and spiritual influence of Narada.
Yeah, that's true also. Sometimes you have experience, you want to tell some complaint or something, and you come to a very exalted personality, immediately you forget your problem only, right? So that is the power of exalted personalities. In their presence, all the tiny problems appear, problems appear very tiny in front of them. Similarly here, Mrugari, although he was so sinful, and he was naturally speaking bad names, but in front of Narada he could not. So that is the influence of a great personality. One hesitates to commit bad things in front of a great personality. So that's what we can learn from this. Mrugari was grossly sinful before. Then why did he become afraid of committing sins now? So what's the right answer? Should I read the options? Narada induced such fear in him by displaying the deadly hell that awaited Mrugari. By holy company of Narada, his heart got cleansed. Therefore, he became afraid of sins. Because he understood that he was causing great pain to poor and innocent animals, he had
and
accumulated
D.
a huge amount of sins and was afraid of a terrible reaction that awaited him due to fear of pain that awaits him in future.
A, C,
A and D. A,
D,
D.
C also can be there. A and D is there, but because he understood that he
The
was
options
called
A, C, and D.
Okay, B and D you're telling.
C.
So A and
A,
D,
C, and D.
A, C and D. Okay. Actually, if you read the paragraph, you'll see here.
B and D.
Yeah, B and D. Those who are grossly foolish are not afraid of committing sins. But here we can see that because his purification began in the association of great devotees with Narada, the hunter became afraid of sinful activities. He became purified when Narada Muni came there. Just by presence of Narada, Mrugari's heart changed. Then he became afraid of committing sinful activities. Right. In that sense, B is the one answer. And D also, because he was afraid of the pain which is going to come as reactions to his sinful activities. So B and D will be the right answers. Okay. And the option D also includes A. In one sense, it includes A also, because he was fearful of the pain of suffering. Okay, so you can read. Somebody else would like to read now this section? Would you volunteer?
Shall I?
Okay, Mataji, please read.
Break the bow of sinful life, Lord will maintain you. Narad then told him to first break his bow. Only then would he disclose the path of liberation. You are asking me to break my bow, the hunter protested. But if I break it, what will be the means of my livelihood? Don't worry about your livelihood, Narad said. I shall send you sufficient grains in order to live. The source of our income is not actually the source of our maintenance. Every living being from the need to scroll up.
Yeah.
Okay, so every living being from the great Brahma down to an insignificant ant is being maintained by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Eko bahunam yo vidhati kamana. The one supreme being, Krishna, maintains everyone. Our so-called source of income is our own choice only. If I wish to be a hunter, it will appear that hunting is the source of my maintenance. If I become a Brahmana and completely depend on Krishna, I do not conduct a business, but nonetheless my maintenance is supplied by Krishna. The hunter was disturbed about breaking his bow because he was worried about his income. Narada Muni assured the hunter because he knew that the hunter was not being maintained by the bow but by Krishna. Being the agent of Krishna, Narada Muni knew very well that the hunter would not suffer by breaking the bow. There was no doubt that Krishna would supply him food. Chaitanya Charitamrit Madhya Leela 24 to 57.
So this story comes in Madhya Leela of Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is the book of biography of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So here it is said that Narada Muni told you break the bow, and hunter become afraid. If I break the bow, then what will happen to my roti kapada makan? How will that be maintained? Narada said, don't worry, it will be arranged. I will arrange it. Krishna will arrange it. But still he was afraid. Should I break the bow? Like, imagine if somebody says, no, you could give up your job. Immediately only will get afraid. What will happen to my roti kapada makan? Right. Recently, one of the persons whom I know, he said yesterday, he said, Prabhuji, I got a call from my office, and the office wala said that you are fired. in one sense, you are laid off, because the company is also in doldrums, and they are laying off people. About 8 people are laid off, and he is also one among them. So then one will wonder, no, what will happen to my roti kapada makan for the future. So, but actually, in such case, one should have faith that Krishna is the maintainer, not the company or the boss. Krishna is the actual maintainer, and Krishna is sending me facilities through this person or through that person. Today, some boss may be there and he is providing me, but actually, Krishna is providing that boss. That's why he has something, and that boss gives something to me. Right? In future, somebody else will pay, somebody else will give to me, but ultimately, Lord is providing. How he will provide? Through whom he will provide, that we don't know, but it will come. So that faith we should have. So Rakshishiti Vishwaso Gopatrape Varanam Tata, to have full faith that Krishna will protect me. That is called Sharanagati. Right? Sharanagati is something very deep concept. Sharanagati means what? To have full faith that in all circumstances Krishna will protect me. That is faith. So Bharata, Jada Bharata, he also had faith. Although the dacoit was about to cut off his head, he was peaceful. If Krishna wants me to live, nobody can kill me. And if Krishna wants me to come, nobody can save me. Right? So that faith he has. So similarly, that's why devotee is not afraid of death. Because even if death comes, it means Krishna wants me to die now. Let me go. Right? And if Krishna wants me to live, then nobody can do anything to me. So he is fully confident. He is not afraid of death. So that is a very high state. But here, Mrigari was really afraid. Then Narada had to give him assurance. Don't worry, you will be maintained. Right? So generally, sannyasis, they take sannyas and leave, give up their job and give up their material facilities and material shelters, having full faith that Krishna will supply and maintain them. So then such a person can take sannyas. So not everybody can take sannyas. So only one who has developed such faith that Krishna will maintain me in all circumstances, he can take sannyas. Right? So here also Mrigari was afraid, but on the assurance of Narada Muni, Mrigari decided to break the vow. Yes, so we'll continue ahead now. Yeah, somebody would like to read now?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, Rahul.
Narada got him to stand up and he instructed him, just go to your home and distribute whatever money and valuables you have to the devotees and the brahmanas. Then just come out and follow me wearing only one cloth.
Wait. Here,
Also,
this
okay,
paragraph.
okay. Initiation into spiritual life by Guru. The hunter then broke his bow and fell down at the feet of Narada. This is the process of initiation. The disciple must surrender to the spiritual master, the representative of Krishna. The spiritual master, being in the disciplic succession, stemming from Narada Muni, is in the same category with Narada Muni. A person can be relieved from his sinful activity if he surrenders to the lotus feet of a person who actually represents Narada Muni. Narada Muni gave instructions to the hunter after the hunter surrendered. Narada got him to stand up and he instructed him, just go to your home and distribute whatever money and valuables you have to the devotees and brahmanas. Then just come out and follow me wearing one cloth. Construct a small thatched house on the river bank and sow a tulsi plant by that house. Just circumambulate the tulsi tree and every day taste one fallen leaf. Above all, always chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. As far as your livelihood is concerned, I shall send you grains, but you will only accept as much grains as you require for yourself and your wife.
Yeah. So here the process of initiation is being described. Initiation is what? One agrees to follow the instructions of Guru. That's called initiation. So initiation means beginning in spiritual life, beginning, or it's also called Diksha Karyakram. The process of Diksha, where the Diksha is like a contract between Guru and Shishya. So Shishya takes the commitment of following the instructions of Guru, and Guru takes the commitment of taking the disciple back to Godhead. भगवान के पास लेके जाने का संकल्प Guru will take. So both agree to mutual agreement. So if one party breaks if the disciple fails to follow, then Guru also is not obliged to take him back to God. So it's like a mutual contract of love between Guru and disciple. So Narada Muni here acting as a Guru, he told Mrigari, you break this bow. And Mrigari agreed. And then Narada Muni gave the mantra, Hare Krishna mantra, and said, you chant. Where you should chant? You should chant in a holy place by putting a tulsi and circumambulate tulsi, water tulsi, and chant Hare Krishna and tulsi. Then you'll make quick advancement and everything will be provided. So it's such a simple thing, Narada Muni said, and Mrigari agreed to follow. Because of this, Mrigari made quick advancement, very quick advancement. In fact, we also in the morning temple hall, we chant, we keep tulsi in the center and we chant sitting around tulsi, because tulsi is a very powerful plant. It's not just a plant, she is a Devi. When Tulsi from spiritual world, she is a gopi in spiritual world originally. She is one of the associates of Krishna in spiritual world. When she comes to material world, she takes the form of a plant, and she gives mercy to all of us in the form of that plant. So one should water Tulsi jal dan karna chahiye, and then pradakshina. So by doing this every day, one quickly advances in Krishna consciousness. And whatever Naivedya you are offering to the Lord, put one Tulsi leaf and pray to Krishna, kindly accept this, and Krishna will accept it. So just by doing such simple activities, one can make quick progress. So Mrigari agreed to do this. So this stage of life is called as Vanaprastha life. Okay, retired life. So let's see what is retired life. Yeah. So somebody else would like to read now these sections? Who has not read till now?
Uh, from Grihastha Ashrama to Vanaprastha Ashrama, Narada Muni advised the hunter to adapt the Vanaprastha stage and leave home. This is the process of renunciation at the stage of Vanaprastha. After enjoying the householder life for some time, the husband and wife must leave home and distribute their riches to Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. One can keep his wife to assist in spiritual advancement.
Yeah, so Vanaprastha life means retired life. Generally in Varnashrama system, there are 4 ashramas: Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyasa ashram. Brahmachari ashram is life as a bachelor up to the age of 25 or till the time he gets married. That's called Brahmachari life. And Grihastha life means family life, where he stays with wife and children and works and earns money up to the age of 50. So generally approximately from the age of 25 to 50 is the Grihastha life. And then after 50, he retires and he takes Vanaprastha. Actually, Vanaprastha is going to the forest. The husband and wife together, they go to the forest and do spiritual activities. So that is Vanaprastha life. But currently in Kali Yuga, there are hardly any forests remaining. So one may not go to forest. but one retires from all material responsibilities and gives full time to devotional service, spiritual activities. So that is called Vanaprastha life. Here Mrigari gave up his occupation as a hunter and he engaged in spiritual activities along with his wife. So that indicates he took Vanaprastha. And after Vanaprastha comes Sannyasa life, where he gives up the wife also, in sense that he keeps her in the care of son, elderly son, and then he goes alone and he wanders all around the earth and distributes spiritual knowledge. So that is sannyasa. In this way, there are 4 ashramas: brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas. So now Mrigari is going from grihastha life to vanaprastha life.
One question: are these 4 ashramas only for men as such? Like, what will be the stages in women's?
Yeah. So generally, these 4 stages are for men only. Because brahmachari, he stays in a gurukul and then he studies under a guru. But for a woman, mother and father, they generally teach, or elderly women who are more experienced in life, they teach. So generally in traditional culture, men teach men and women teach women. So that is the culture. So there was separation maintained between man and woman. So up to the time of marriage. Before marriage, there was no mixing of men and women. But after marriage, the lady can mix with her husband and not with any other man. So that strict culture was being followed to maintain purity of relationships. So woman generally stays in home only. Brahmacharya life is practiced in ashram under the care of a guru. But generally girls were not sent to outside because they need protection. So they were at home and mother, father will take care, and they will also teach all education to them, whatever they have learned. So they also learned mantras of worshipping the Lord and doing household affairs, and also Vedic wisdom, whatever was required, that much was taught. So that was because the we can say the profile of man and woman in Vedic culture was defined. Man will do this and woman will do this. So that kind of system was there, which was good because everybody knew their roles. But in the modern society, what happens? There is intermixing, right? There is competition. Sometimes women may want to compete and prove themselves better than men. So that becomes a problem because it's not possible. Man's body is made in a certain nature, and woman's body is made in a different nature, right? Just like woman can produce children, but man cannot. Right? Man can walk alone anywhere and he can protect himself, but may not be possible for women. So because of these differences, different kind of training was provided. So this training of brahmachari life was there mainly for men, and grihastha ashram is both for men and women, where man takes the lead in taking care, providing for the needs for the family, and woman takes care in arranging the home and training the children. So that was a grihastha ashram. Then women can be part of vanaprastha ashram also, but generally women don't take sannyas because sannyas means being alone and walking the world alone, which is difficult for women. So generally they will stay in the custody of grown-up children. So that was a system designed for women in the Vedic culture, and women were given a lot of protection in the Vedic culture. So when they were children, when they were young, they will be protected by parents. When they get married, they are protected by husband, and when they become old, they are protected by elderly children. So that was the system which was there in the Vedic culture. Right. Does it answer the question?
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. So should we go ahead with the story? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Rohit was reading. Can you continue reading? Yeah. Can you read from here, Rohit? Krishna supplies.
Krishna supplies all material necessities for one who takes to Krishna consciousness. When a person takes to Krishna consciousness, there is no need to take care of material necessities. Krishna says, Yoga Kshemam Vahamiham, Bhagavad Gita 9.22. I personally carry all necessities to my devotees. Why should one be anxious about the necessities of life? The principle should be that one should not want more more than that what is absolutely necessary. Narada Muni advises the hunter to accept only what is absolutely necessary for him and his wife. The devotee should always be alert to consume only those things that he absolutely requires and not to create unnecessary needs. In any condition, any man can live in a small cottage, plant a tulsi tree, water it in the morning, offer it prayers, and continuously chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Then one can make vigorous spiritual advancement. This is not at all difficult. One simply has to follow the instructions of spiritual master strictly. Then everything will be successful in due course of time.
Yeah. So advancing in bhakti is not very difficult. Very simple. Just stay simple in a simple place. Plant tulsi, chant Hare Krishna, do your morning program. That's the way of progressing in spiritual life. Okay, there's a long paragraph coming here. Please continue.
As far as eating is concerned, there is no problem. If Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead supplies everyone with eatables, why should he not supply his devotee? Sometimes a devotee will not bother even to construct a cottage. He will live simply to live in a mountain cave. One may live in a cave in a cottage beside a river in a place in a palace or in a big city like New York or London. In any case, a devotee can follow the instruction of his spiritual master and engage in devotional service by watering the tulsi plant and chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Taking the advice of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and our spiritual master Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaja, one can go at any part of the world and instruct the people to become the devotees of the Lord by following the regulative principles. Worshipping the Tulsi plant and continuously chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Narada then relieved half-dead animals.
Here, now, should we go to Himalayas and live in some cottage, or we can live in city and continue practicing? What do you feel?
City and continue practicing.
City in, okay, you want to stay in city and continue practicing. Which is better, staying in remote villages or remote forests, or staying in cities?
Alone practice is much more easier.
Where in?
Alone, staying alone would be much more easier than in city, because you get entangled with or seeing others. You might lose your path and go to other path.
Okay, so one may glide down to materialistic path by seeing others. Okay, that's true. Yeah. Rohit is raising hand. You want to say something?
No, Prabhu, no, Prabhu.
Prabhuji, can I say?
Yes, Rahul.
Wherever we stay, if we can stay in association with devotees, I think we can proceed abroad. We can progress very fast.
Yeah. So actually, it doesn't matter whether you stay in a secluded place, in a remote place, and practice spirituality, or you're right in the middle of a city and you're practicing right in the middle of a city. Still, you can continue practicing. We just have to adjust our consciousness that I am doing it for Krishna. At Srila Prabhupada, when he was in India, he was an unknown person practically. And he was staying in Vrindavan in a small place in a temple in Vrindavan. And he was writing books. Hardly anybody knew him. They knew that he was writing some books and sitting in this room. That much they knew. But he was not very famous. So he was happy in Vrindavan. And when he went to America, he was staying in a very kind of a slum kind of area where all drunkards and hippies were staying. And still he was happy even in that place. And later on, when the movement started picking up and a lot of devotees started coming, Prabhupada used to get good high-class facilities, sometimes 5-star rooms and big and what you can say, suits for staying, or a room on the beach. So that kind of facilities also he was getting. But Prabhupada said, wherever Krishna wants me to stay, I will stay, but I'll preach Krishna consciousness. I'll spread this message of Krishna consciousness. I'll fulfill the instructions of my Guru. So Prabhupada was not at all attached to any facilities. Whatever came, he accepted and used it in Krishna service. So a devotee need not be very rigid about, okay, I'll stay in cottage only, or I'll stay in a forest or a Himalayan cave. So whatever facility Krishna gives to preach Krishna consciousness, that he may use it as minimum as possible and spread Krishna consciousness. That is a devotee. So that's what is being told here. One may live in a cave, in a cottage beside a river, in a palace, or in a big city like New York or London. In any case, devotee can follow the instructions of his spiritual master and engage in devotional service and chant Hare Krishna. So that is the important point here.
Narada then relieved then half dead animals and getting freed from their dreadful condition. They fled.
Can you keep your mic little away from mouth? It will be more clear. Little away.
Now it is okay, bro.
Yeah, speak now.
Seeing that Narada executed his miracle, the dark hunter was struck with wonder. After taking Narada to his home, he bowed down again at his feet. Narada returned to his place. The hunter.
Lot of noise is coming. Lot of air noise is coming. You have to be a little clear.
Yes, bro. I will go inside. 1 second, bro.
Okay, so we'll just wait for it to come. Or somebody else can continue reading till the time he comes.
Narada returned to his place, and the hunter, after returning home, began to execute the instructions Narada had given him. In the meantime, news spread amongst all the villagers that the hunter had become a devotee. Consequently, the residents of the village came to see the new Vaishnava. It is the Vedic custom to bring grains and fruits whenever one goes to see a saintly person. And since all the villagers saw that the hunter had turned into a great devotee, they brought eatables with them. Thus, every day he was offered grains and fruit, so much so that no less than 10 to 20 people could have eaten there. According to Narada's instruction, he didn't accept anything more than what he and his wife required for sustenance.
See, he was getting so much. Actually, it's a custom in India that people like to give to a saintly person. If some saintly person visits a village, and all the villagers will gather and they will invite him, they'll offer respects to him, and then they will wash his feet and then invite him home for lunch or for prasad. So that is a custom in tradition. Generally, a sadhu keeps traveling from one village to another village. Wherever he goes, he will do some satsang, he will speak about shastras and enlighten people, inspire them to practice Krishna consciousness, maintain their culture. And in return, the people of the village may offer him fruits and grains and whatever is required for him. But generally, he gets more than what he will do. He will distribute it back. To whoever needs, he will distribute it back. So that is the custom. So Mrigari also, he got so much, then remaining whatever excess was there, he was giving it back to people. Yes. Yeah. Please read this. Srila Prabhupada writes.
Srila Prabhupada writes, it is the duty of the public to present a gift to a saintly person, Vaishnava or Brahmana, when going to see him. Every Vaishnava is dependent on Krishna, and Krishna is ready to supply all of life's necessities, provided a Vaishnava follows the principles set forth by the spiritual master. There are certainly many householders in our Krishna consciousness movement. They join the movement and live in the society centers, but if they take advantage of this opportunity and don't work but live at the expense of the movement, eating prasadam and simply sleeping, they place themselves in a very dangerous position. It is therefore advised that Grahasthas should not live in the temple. They must live outside the temple and maintain themselves. Of course, if the Grahasthas are fully engaged in the Lord's service according to the directions of the authority, there is no harm in the living in a temple. In any case, a temple should not be a place to eat and sleep. A temple manager should be very careful about these things. CC Madhya 24:6.
Yeah. So here Prabhupada is giving vision for what should be a temple. The temple is a place of worship. At the same time, temple is also a place for education. So Srila Prabhupada's definition of a ISKCON temple was it should be educational university. That was Prabhupada's vision. ISKCON temple should not be a temple where people come just ring some bell and see some deity in the altar and put some dakshina and go back. No. So that is not the purpose of a temple. Purpose of the temple is to offer Krishna Siksha, Krishna Darshan, Krishna Prasad, and Krishna Seva, Krishna Nam. 5 things. So what are the 5 things? Krishna Darshan, Darshan of Lord Krishna. Then Krishna Siksha, temple should provide knowledge about Krishna or Bhagavad Gita. Krishna Siksha is what Krishna has spoken, that is Bhagavad Gita. So Krishna Darshan, Krishna Siksha, Krishna Prasad. One should also get Prasad when one visits a temple. Then you should have Krishna Nam, chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. Anybody comes to temple, they should at least chant 1 or 2 mantras or take a mala and start chanting Hare Krishna. Right? And then Krishna Seva, some opportunity for service. So these are the 5 things which a temple should provide, not just ringing bell and showing some darshan. So, but all the Indian temples had these 5 things in their system. And that's why people, when they visit temple, they are told, no, you sit for some time, few minutes. Why? Because some kirtan will be going on, some katha will be going on, you hear something and then walk off. Right? One should not go without hearing or chanting something. So that's why people will sit. But now it has become a ritual. Mandir mein gaye, to jaake baitho thoda, then ut ke chale jao. So that's not the custom. One should hear something about Krishna and chant Krishna's names. But eventually what has happened now is that temples have become very empty. Big temples, but nobody visits there. Only one pujari comes morning, 1 hour he opens, does some puja, and evening he goes, does some puja, and that's all. So there's no education. I went to many temples in South India. Like near Melkote, near Mandya, there is one Tundanuru temple. So it's a huge temple of Venugopala Swami and big temple, but hardly anybody goes. And pujari also comes once in the morning, once in the evening, does puja and goes out. That's all. So what huge temples are there? So that has become the state of affairs. That's why Prabhupada said, our temples, ISKCON temples, should be like educational institutions where constant speaking about Krishna should be happening. Constant kirtan should be happening. Then the temple remains lively. And sometimes many people say, why young people get attracted to ISKCON? Because there's a lot of philosophy here, right? It's very attractive and it's very intellectually presented, intellectually titillating. So those who are very intelligent, they generally get attracted to such kind of philosophy. So that's the reason why in most of the organizations, if you go, you'll find old people. But if you come to ISKCON, you'll find young people. So why? Because the movement is very attractive and the philosophy is very lofty and very intelligent people can only understand this. So that's the reason. So that should be so one should not become a parasite living on the temple, but one should become an active contributor for the temple. In our temple also we have many families connected, right? We are like me, there are hardly 3-4 in our temple who are fully serving without any other occupation. But there are about 300 families connected to our ISKCON Cultural Center, and they are also working. They have family, they have children, and they also have some service in the temple. Each one has got some service, so they come at a particular day and then do their services, and especially on Sundays, Saturday and Sundays when they are free, they come. Somebody has cleaning, somebody has some DT services, somebody does accounts service, somebody some maintenance services of the temple. So each one has got some different responsibilities. So that keeps one connected to Krishna, right? So in this way, the temple becomes the center of life, and the whole life revolves around Krishna and his temple and his service. So in this way, the life becomes Krishnaized, and then spiritual progress becomes very easy, right? But on the other hand, materialistic person, as soon as Saturday Sunday comes, he thinks, oh, I'll go to mall, I'll go to Central Mall or that mall, go to movie. So material enjoyment becomes the center. But for our devotees, these 300 families, whenever there is holiday, first they think of temple. Let me go to the temple. What is special in the temple, right? So the life orbits around the temple, not around movie theaters or sense enjoyment, not like that, right? So that should be the life, keeping Krishna in the center. Okay, that's a Grihastha life. Yeah. Okay. So there are some questions here. What does breaking the bow by Mrigari denote?
See, by breaking the bow, he breaks the bow of sinful activities. So because with that bow only, he's killing all the animals and other animals. So then he gets sinful activities. So without the bow, he can. The bow is like the bow of sinful activities. So when he
Okay,
breaks
so
it,
bow
it does.
represents sinful life, but he did it on the order of Guru, Narada Muni, right? So it also represents,
BD, Prabhuji.
yeah, so stopping sinful life and surrendering to Guru. That's what it means. You're telling D also, it means anybody like Mrigari can be relieved from sinful life if he surrenders to Narada Muni. Yeah, correct. So B and D, right? C also, it represents the process of initiation, right? So B, C and D, all three can be correct answers.
All are correct, I think so.
You say all are correct. First one is also stopping of sin, killing of animals, which he used to do before. Yeah, so all four are correct. Nice. What does accepting in charity as much grain as one requires for oneself and one's wife indicate? Okay, there are four options given here.
D, Prabhuji.
D. Process
D.
of renunciation in the stage of
Vanaprastha.
Vanaprastha. That's correct. That's the only right answer here. Okay, so this I already discussed as part of discussion. Okay, in whichever place, either it may be cottage or in a cave or in a palace, one can stay and practice Krishna consciousness. Now let's see, after practicing the instruction given by Narada Muni, what transformation Mrigari gets. We'll see here. Yeah, who would like to read now? Anybody has not read till now?
Can I read?
Who is that?
Vashni.
Okay, yes, Mataji, please. Yeah.
Narada Muni is glorified by Parvata Muni as a touchstone. After some days has passed, Narada told his friend Parvata Muni, "I have a disciple. Let us go to see him and see if he is doing well." With the two sages, Narada and Parvata went to the hunter's home. The hunter saw his spiritual master coming from the distance, and he began to approach him with great respect. On his way to greet the great sages, the hunter saw that there were ants on the ground before him and that they were hindering his passage. Thus he slowly cleared away the ants with his cloth. When Narada saw that the hunter was trying to save the lives of the ants in this way, he was reminded of a verse from Skanda Purana, Skanda Purana. Yeah. Is it not wonderful that a devotee of the Lord is not inclined to give any sort of pain to anyone, not even to an ant? Although the hunter formerly took great pleasure in half killing animals, since he became a great devotee of the Lord, he was not prepared to give pain even to an ant. The hunter received the two great sages at his home and offered them a sitting place, brought water, washed their feet, took water to them to drink, and finally both he and his wife touched the water with their heads. After this, they began to feel ecstasy, and began to dance and sing Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. They raised their hands and danced with their clothes flying. When the two great sages saw this ecstasy of love of Godhead manifest in the body of the hunter, Parvata Muni told Narada, "You are a touchstone, for by your association, even a great hunter has turned into a great devotee."
Yeah. So see here in
That
this
is a verse in Skanda Purana.
yeah, in this photo you will see Narada Muni and Parvata Muni coming together. So both are great friends actually, and they came to meet the disciple Mrigari. So you will see in this photo that Mrigari, he is careful not to step on ant. He is brushing the ants with his hand, and then he is coming and offering obeisances to Narada Muni and Parvata Muni. So seeing this transformation, Parvata Muni is surprised. Hey Narada, what kind of disciple you have got? He is so careful not to even hurt the animals also. Sorry, the ants also. So such a transformation. Then Narada Muni says, you are like a touchstone. So touchstone, it's a stone. When you touch it with something, then that becomes gold. And if you touch to a metal, it becomes gold. So the touchstone can convert metal into gold. So it is there in the Puranas. It's called Parasmani or Chintamani. But right now we don't have experience of such a stone. And there are many valuable stones which are missing now. Like we had heard of Vaidurya gem. It is missing now. We don't see it. So previously there were many costly gems and stones which are missing now. So Parasmani is also one of that. So another kind of Parasmani is a devotee. When a devotee comes in touch with any sinful person, the sinful person also transforms. So that's why Parvata Muni is calling Narada Muni as a touchstone. He is a wonderful devotee and he is making others into wonderful devotees. So that is the so Rohit was telling it is there in Krishna Devaraya time also. Yeah. Bhanuswami Maharaj says this. Okay. It was there with Sanatan Goswami also in Vrindavan. So one person had come and he wanted Parasmani, and Sanatan Goswami had put it in a dustbin. He told that person, you go and pick up from the dustbin. And later on, he picks up and he is walking off. Then he says, if Parasmani is putting in dustbin, then he must be having something more valuable. Then this person goes back to Sanatan Goswami and asks, hey, you have something valuable than Parasmani? And Sanatan Goswami says, yes, I have something more valuable than that. And can you give me that? And Sanatan Goswami says, you should throw this water, throw this Parasmani into Yamuna and then come. Then I'll give you. So he goes, throws it and then comes back. And Sanatan Goswami gives him Hare Krishna mantra, which will give him Krishna. Krishna is a valuable, like the precious gem. So the Sanatan Goswami gave the mantra by which he can realize Krishna. So that is a valuable stone. So now it is missing. We don't know where it is. Yeah. So let's read this, complete this section. Yeah. Can you read from here? There is a verse in Skanda Purana. Subhashini Mataji.
There is a verse in Skanda Purana which states that, my dear Devarshi Narada, you are glorious by your mercy. Even the lowest creature, a hunter of the animal, also became elevated to the path of devotion and attained the transcendental attachment for Krishna. Srila Prabhupada comments, when touchstone touches the iron, it turns into iron into gold. Parvata Muni called Narada Muni a touchstone because by his touch touched the hunter who was the lowest among men.
Became an elevated and perfect Vaishnava.
Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur said that the position of a Vaishnava can be tested by seeing how a good a person he is. That is, by seeing how many Vaishnavas he had made during his life. A Vaishnava should be a touchstone so that he can convert the others to Vaishnavism by his preaching. Even though people may fall like the hunter, there are many so-called advanced devotees who sit in a scheduled place for their personal benefit. They don't go out to preach and convert others into Vaishnavas, and therefore they certainly cannot call Sparasa Mani advanced devotees. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advised his followers to increase the number of the Vaishnavas.
Yeah. So here, yeah. So here, a devotee is like a touchstone, but when he touches somebody, he also becomes a wonderful devotee. And how can you estimate the power of the touchstone? By how many people he can affect and give Krishna to them. So that is the power of a touchstone. So here, Narada Muni is an expert preacher. That's what Paramatma is glorifying Narada Muni as. So in this story, we saw that how a sinful person like Mrugari became a wonderful devotee by the association of Narada Muni. So that's why the topic was entitled Heart Transformation by Saintly Association. So main thing for spiritual life is having a saintly association. Right? So coming together regularly with a saintly association, like all of you, a group is coming together and we're discussing some wonderful topics from Shastras, from Gita and Bhagavatam. So in this way, we're discussing what happens, our heart gets transformed. And not just by hearing, but also by practicing. When you keep practicing, the heart becomes transformed and we'll also become from a person like Mrugari. Of course, Mrugari was very sinful, but at least we are better than him. So we can transform from being cruel to compassionate, right? From envious to being satisfied, from greedy to having abundance mentality, right? So in this way, the heart gets transformed. So this is the power of association of a devotee. Okay. So we will end here. And I was thinking that this remaining part, which is there, which is also very vital, we'll take this tomorrow. Actually, tomorrow we are not having any Prerna kind of program. Generally, we used to have every week Sunday Prerna program. But because we are having another event, like how many of you got that message about the event which we are doing, 21 days event? So okay, many of you saw that. Okay, you're raising your hands. So this is an event for new people. It's not for all of you. You have already crossed that stage of this 21 days event. That is mainly for new people who want to come, and mainly for youth, basically college students or working students who are youth. For them, we want to do this event, and this 21 days event. So it's called Bring Out the Best in You, and we are a team of people who are going to take this event. And till now we have got a good amount of registrations, and we are expecting more to register in a couple of days.
Yes. Yes, Prabhu, we'll also try to bring from our side also.
Yeah. So we'll discuss about this aspect tomorrow, and tomorrow we'll be having a lot of other people also joining us from other groups. Like yours is one group which we are doing programs, online Gita course 1 and 2 combined. There's online Gita course 3 also which is going on. They will also join tomorrow, and we'll have our youth team who are also about 15-20 of them. So they will also be joining. So we'll have a basically discussion on the last part of this, which is called Janma Sarthaka Kari Karapara Upakar. Right? So preach about Krishna to others. That's the theme. So will you be able to come tomorrow?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah, it's possible. So same time we'll have it generally. Yeah, so we can keep it. Generally, Sunday program we keep it 6:30, 6:30 to 7:30. Is the time convenient all of you, or should we do it between 6 to 7?
6 to 7 if possible.
6 to 7 is better tomorrow. Do others agree with this?
Yes, Babuji, 6 to 7 will do.
So we'll keep it. It will not be a long program. It will be 6 to 7. Okay. So then we'll meet tomorrow at 6 o'clock. Huh? Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Babuji.
Okay. So
Hare
thank
Krishna,
you very much
Prabhu.
for joining.
Hare Krishna,
So,
Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji.
Tomorrow.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much.
Hare
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.